When my son unlocked the front door and saw the blue tape across the hallway camera, the banker at my kitchen table, and his daughter holding a silver voice recorder like a courtroom exhibit, his face did something I had never seen in 67 years. It learned fear. They called it caretaking. Watch the dog, water the plants, keep the house warm. Such a simple, harmless word, caretaking, like you're holding a teacup so it won't chip. The morning Aaron left, he hugged me with that rushed, distracted squeeze adult children give when they've already moved on to the next thing. His wife, Tessa, kissed the air near my cheek and told me how grateful she was. They were going away on business for 3 days, which meant expensive jackets, a luggage set that looked like it came with a concierge, and exactly 2 reusable water bottles for the drive. We all stood in the foyer beneath the framed watercolor of a lighthouse I bought them on a trip they couldn't afford years back. Their house smelled like citrus cleaner and last night's garlic. I felt small inside my own sweater, the old navy one with mended elbows, watching my son adjust his cuff, watching my granddaughter, Lena, tuck her hair behind her ears like she was putting away a secret. "Text if you need anything, Mom," Aaron said, glancing at his watch. "The dog eats at 6. The thermostat, we had trouble with it, just, leave it alone." I nodded like a good soldier. 67 isn't 87, but it's old enough for people to talk to you like you're made of glass. They left in a hurry, the front door closing with the expensive thud of a thing that locks you out and keeps you in at the same time. Lena didn't move until the car's sound faded. Then she stepped close, her voice a thin thread. "Grandma," she whispered, "I heard them say they were going to take you to a nursing home today and take your money." So I had a plan. I didn't feel my knees buckle. I didn't gasp or clutch at pearls I don't own. I set my palm on the banister for balance because the room had started to tilt. There's a way the world tilts when a child tells the truth no adult would dare to say. I looked at her for a long breath, the soft cut of her jaw, Aaron's eyes, the tiny scar at her hairline from the bike when she was 8. "What plan?" I asked. She pulled a folded sheet from the pocket of her hoodie and smoothed it on the hall table like a map. At the top, she'd written in neat block letters, "Operation Lightkeeper." "Because you're the lighthouse," she said, cheeks flushing like she'd said too much. "You always have been." I had to sit down for that. Lena perched on the stair beside me. "I didn't mean to hear them," she began. "I was doing homework on the couch. Mom thought I was asleep. They were in the kitchen. She said you're stubborn and the only way is surprise placement, like to bring you to lunch and then make a stop at a place where a lady would handle intake paperwork. And Dad didn't say no. He just asked about access to your accounts because your name is still on the house in Cedar Harbor and you have, his words, lazy money and savings. He said, once she's safe and settled, we need to consolidate. I can't keep paying her property tax and pretending everything is fine." Lena's mouth twisted. "Which is dumb, because you pay your own. I've seen your checks." I felt a heat moving up my throat. Not rage yet, just heat, the kind that dries a riverbed to cracked earth before the storm. Aaron had paid my property tax once, the year I had surgery. He has mentioned it every holiday since, as if it were a monument erected in my honor. "I recorded them," Lena said, and there it was, her phone on the table, screen black and innocent. "Sweetheart." "I know," she said quickly, "recording without permission is weird. But Mom always says, if it's not written down it doesn't exist," and I thought if they try to do something you can show someone. She lowered her voice to a conspirator's hush. "And there's more." On her plan, Operation Lightkeeper, Lena had drawn a lighthouse with a beam sweeping across boxes labeled with times. 9:10, call Mr. Bennett. 9:25, check safe. 9:40, call bank fraud line. 10:15, put Jasper in carrier. 10:30, Grandma's house. "You made a schedule," I said, because sometimes the only way to breathe is to name the obvious. She bit her lip. "Grandma? I know you hate asking for help. But I think this is help. Mr. Bennett is our neighbor. Remember? The one with the weird tomatoes in the summer? He's a retired lawyer. He told me once at Halloween he used to work on, like, estates and guardianships. And you have to check your safe because Mom found the keys yesterday. She was mad your safe is old-fashioned, But then she said it would be one less step if she already had the code. My stomach went tight as a fist. The safe wasn't grand, a steel cube with a dial, bought in 1987 when Aaron was still losing teeth and my husband, Roy, still called me hey, champ across the breakfast table. Roy has been gone 15 years, but his voice, which sat at the low back of my heart, said now in that calm carpenter's way, "Get up, Evie. Buttons before tears." "Okay," I said. "Let's go." We moved like we were stealing time. In the den, I knelt at the safe and worked the dial. The metal side open. I had my will inside and a folder titled "Need This If I Forget Who I Am," copies of my Medicare card, insurance info, a letter to myself I'd written 10 years back on a day the morning fog wouldn't lift. The letter started, "Evelyn, you are not lost. You made pancakes last Tuesday. You know your father's middle name. People will try to take your hands. Give them only one. Keep the other on the railing." What wasn't there turned the heat under my ribs into flame. The yellow envelope with the house title, the slip with my safe deposit box key, and the old power of attorney Roy and I had made a lifetime ago. Naming each other because we had no one else then, and then never updating it because we were busy, then grieving, then letting the years shape their own excuses. It was arrogant to think paper would be loyal just because you were. "Grandma?" Lena's voice came across the room, soft and expensive with care. "It's okay. You have copies, right?" "Not here," I said. "And that's on me." "I think Mom took them yesterday," Lena said quickly, guilt spilling from her mouth that wasn't hers to carry. "She put papers in her tote. She said she was tired of waiting for Dad to do what needs to be done." "I'm sorry. I should have said something sooner. I didn't know what was big." Her breath hitched. "I'm not good at knowing what's big." I touched her cheek. "You're good at exactly what you are," I said. "You're good at telling the truth early." She nodded, bottom lip pressed white, and checked her list. "Mr. Bennett?" "Yes," he answered on the second ring. "Bennett. This is Evelyn Hale," I said. "From next door." "Miss Hale. My favorite good fence makes good neighbors. Everything all right?" "I hope so," I said. "But I could use advice. The kind where the clock is hungry." He didn't ask useless questions. "Come over," he said. "Bring the kid." He met us on his porch in his yard boots and a tie like the top of him had a different plan than the bottom. The house smelled like coffee and old paper. His living room was a book with chairs in it. "Tell me," he said, and Lena did. She handed him her phone with the recording cued, and while he listened, Mr. Bennett's eyebrows migrated north in quiet, disciplined outrage. He set the phone down like it belonged in a display. "Here is the first and most important thing," he said. "You are not crazy. You are not hysterical. This is not a misunderstanding. If what I heard goes where it sounds like it's going, this is attempted elder financial exploitation. People who love you don't do surprise placements. People who love you say words like choice and timing and what do you want." I took a breath that tasted like clean rain. "Second," he went on, "if they've got their hands on an old power of attorney, we rescind it. Today. We write a revocation with today's date and sign it in front of a notary. We also create a new durable power of attorney naming someone you actually trust." "I don't want to burden anyone," I said reflexively, the old apology rising like steam. "You're not a burden," Lena snapped, cheeks hot. "You're my grandmother." Mr. Bennett smiled, small and real. "Third," he said, "we call your bank's elder fraud line and put a watch on your accounts. We freeze any automatic withdrawals," they added. "Fourth, we call adult protective services, not because you're in danger right now, but because a paper trail is a life jacket. Fifth, change your locks. Sixth, take the dog and get to your house before anyone can call you stubborn inside a brochure. They'll come back tonight if the business is really dinner with the breakwaters," Lena said. "Mom said they'd be at the Harbor Club at 6. She doesn't know I can see her location." We both looked at her. She shrugged. "Safety. Dad said to keep it on." He meant for them, but that knife cuts both ways. Mr. Bennett let out the kind of chuckle people make when the world is terrible and the child is brilliant. He opened a drawer and slid a wooden box onto the table. Inside lay a bank of stationery and God bless the petty plans of retired men, 2 fresh notary stamps. "I keep my commission current," he said. For nosy neighbor reasons. We drafted words the way a person stitches skin, quick, precise, no poetry, just function. I revoked any and all prior powers of attorney naming anyone but me, and then signed a new one naming Mr. Bennett for finance and a woman named Rose Mendez, a nurse and friend from my church, for health decisions. We printed 3 copies. We signed them all. He stamped the pages with a satisfying ka-chunk that felt louder than fear. Lena filmed me reading the revocation on camera. Why? She asked when I raised an eyebrow. Date-stamped proof, she said. Some people don't read. Some people can't, Mr. Bennett murmured. They only recognize things with a seal. Then we called the bank. The woman on the line, soft voice, firm spine, took my secret password, listened to the situation, and turned into a machine built for storms. In 30 minutes, she had flagged my accounts, removed an authorized user Aaron had added to help with online banking, reset my alerts to ping me, Rose, and Mr. Bennett, and kicked out a suspicious automatic transfer set to go today at noon. A fund Aaron had labeled tax hold in my online banking as if a person could set aside money to pay a lie. Good work calling, she said. I'm required to tell you we'll file a report with our Elder Client Protection Unit. That may trigger a call to you from a specialist who will sound like she just woke up from a nap. She didn't. She's made 3 calls like this already today. When we hung up, I felt taller by inches. Not the arrogance of victory, but the steadiness of a person standing on floorboards they had installed with their own hands. Now APS, Mr. Bennett said. And after that, call your doctor's office and ask them to jot a note stating you are oriented, independent, and not in need of long-term care placement. A 1-sentence letter puts boulders in the road for people who try to roll you. I nodded, trying not to picture Aaron's mouth when it told the bank the story of a mother who couldn't be trusted with her own money. I pushed the image away. There was a dog to put in a carrier, and a houseplant to unstick from the sill, and a granddaughter to thank for teaching me how to plan a storm backwards, start with the lighthouse, then measure the waves. We moved again. At home, I packed like a field medic, documents, medications, the old ring with the missing sapphire that still felt like a promise, my real glasses, the photograph of Roy covered in sawdust, smiling like a man who knew how the day would end and loved it anyway. Lena took photographs of rooms and of the safe and of the empty space where my envelope had lived. She was building a timeline pixels could lift. On her plan, she added a box at 11:30, call Mr. Reese. Who's Mr. Reese? School resource officer, she said. He's nice to kids who are scared. He knows things about next steps. You've been scared? I asked quietly. She looked at the floor, her hair falling like a curtain. Sometimes when Mom talks about money, she gets a voice like a thin blade. I don't like that voice. I wrapped her in the tight kind of hug that used to be about scraped knees and was now about cutting wind. You did not make the storm, I said into her hair. You just brought me to the boat. Boat, she said, pulling away with a watery smile. We picked a lighthouse theme for a reason. It was noon by the time we hit Cedar Harbor, my small yellow house hunched like a loyal dog against the salt air. Roy built the porch himself in '93, guessing angles like other men guess scores. I unlocked the door and stood a moment inside the quiet. My house smelled like lemon oil and clean laundry. I set Jasper's carrier down and let him wobble out blinking, his belly fur like a cheap wig. He sniffed the rug and decided to love it. We ate grilled cheese standing because sitting felt like a luxury we had not yet earned. Mr. Bennett arrived with a folder and a tray of something his wife had taught him to bake before she left the world. Honey bars, he said. They don't fix anything, but they make the fixes you do taste better. We made calls. APS took the recording and the timeline. They took Mr. Bennett's name and promised a caseworker would follow up. The receptionist sounded tired and kind in a way that made me want to cry. I'm sorry you're dealing with this, she said, like the words were a blanket she laid over my shoulders through a wire. Dr. Shea's office put the letter on her letterhead so fast it felt like someone had pre-written the prayer. Mr. Bennett showed me how to create a living trust with my house inside it, and me as the trustee, Lena as a successor trustee when she's grown, and Rose and Mr. Bennett as backups. We sketched the outline. He would bring a colleague tomorrow to finish the formalities. For today, he filed a notice of intent with the county clerk, a simple, boring document with a long shadow, something that says to any person looking with bad hands, take yours off. When Lena lay down on my couch at 3, her eyelashes fluttering with postponed sleep, I sat in Roy's chair and let my body feel its own edges. The afternoon light pressed gold at the far wall. A gull called, rude and beautiful as always. This is what I know at 67. Storms don't ask your permission, but you still get to choose how you stand. Knees bent. Back straight. One hand on the railing. At 4:15, Lena's phone pinged. She sat up quick. They just posted a picture, she said, biting down a laugh that had more justice than joy in it. Harbor Club. Dad tagged the ribeye. Mom tagged the view. Another ping. Her eyes widened. They're on their way home. You texted them? I asked. I sent Mom a picture of Jasper so she wouldn't think I'm up to anything. She said they're heading back early. She wrote, tell the old girl to get some rest. Big day tomorrow. It took everything I owned to swallow what rose in my mouth. Good, Mr. Bennett said, slipping on his blazer like armor. Time for part 2. Part 2. He smiled. It's my turn to be the lightning. You were the lighthouse. We drove back to Aaron's in 2 cars. He had a camera above the porch. We had blue painter's tape. I pressed it over the lens like a woman putting a bandage on a sharp thing. Mr. Bennett arranged the stack of documents like plates. On top, Lena placed her phone with the recording cued to the sentence I could not forget, surprise placement. Beneath it lay my revocation, my new POAs, a preliminary trust, the bank's confirmation of the cancelled transfer, Dr. Shay's letter, and a tidy summary of everything that happened in neat times, a little arrow drawn beside 9:40 that said we chose our own morning. Do we call the police? Lena asked. Not unless they make it a police thing, Mr. Bennett said. But we tell the truth, calmly, holding paper. Paper is slow lightning. It travels far and doesn't burn the wrong fields. He set his phone to record on the counter and nodded at me. You ready? A car door slammed. The second slammed harder. Keys scraped the lock. The door opened and Aaron stepped in, Tessa behind him. He stopped when he saw the tape strip across the camera and then the scene, me at the table in my navy sweater, Mr. Bennett in his blazer, Lena in her hoodie with the lighthouse drawing over her heart, a stack of paper like a spine in the center. What is this? He said. He sounded like a man who walked into his kitchen and found a bear reading his mail. Family conversation, I said, and heard my own voice, steady, simple, a beam sweeping water. With a witness. Tessa recovered first. She lifted her chin. We didn't authorize you to be in here. I was invited, I said, and didn't add by the child you asked me to watch. Aaron's gaze flicked from me to Lena, to the papers, to Mr. Bennett, to the blue tape. He stepped forward in that big man way he learned from sports and business rooms with glass walls. Mom, he said, low and warning, the way boys talk to dogs who've done something on the rug. What are you doing? I slid the revocation across the table. Protecting myself, Aaron. He didn't reach for it. Tessa did. She scanned the sentences, her face a study in algebra. This means nothing, she said. Power of attorney can be granted by any. It can be granted by me for me, I said, or by me for someone I choose. It cannot be granted by you for me, and it cannot be used to move my money without my knowledge because I am not incapacitated. I tapped the doctor's letter. And here is evidence. Aaron flicked his eyes toward the letter, then away, like he was afraid of catching its contents. Tessa kept reading. This living trust, please. Do you think forms you downloaded this afternoon will get you anywhere? You'll be in a facility by Friday. It's what's safest. Lena made a small sound. I took her hand beneath the table, squeezed once. She sat straighter. Mr. Bennett folded his hands. Tessa, he said politely, I'm Edwin Bennett, ESQ retired. I notarized the revocation and the powers of attorney. The trust will be completed tomorrow by an active colleague. We filed notice with the county today. The bank has flagged the accounts and reversed the transfer-labeled tax hold set to clear at noon. Adult Protective Services will follow up within 48 hours. He smiled in the professional way that means this is the friendly version. If your next sentence contains the words facility and Friday, I would advise you to swallow it. You called APS? Aaron's look landed on me like a thrown thing. Mom, what have you done? What you should have, I said evenly. I've asked for help because you made a plan to lie to me and to remove me from my home and my decisions without my consent. You called it surprise placement. Lena recorded you. We will not play that recording unless we have to. But we have it. Lena slid her phone forward like a chess piece. Pressed play. The room filled with their voices speaking from the past, from the kitchen, from the moment you think you're alone in the world, and say the thing the world should never hear you say. Surprise placement. Access to accounts. Lazy money. Something in Aaron's face, some cheap hinge holding an identity together, gave way with a soft, sick sound. He didn't look at me. He looked at his daughter, and what he saw there must have been the mirror he avoided all week, all year, maybe his whole life. Tessa went pale in a way people only do when they realize a thing is bigger than their favorite script. She set the paper down and reached for the next one as if the next could undo the last. They all said the same thing. I'm a person. I'm not your project. You made me the bad guy, she whispered, voice thin and sharp. You told her to spy. No, Lena said, standing, sea blue eyes steady as a lighthouse lamp. You did that part yourself. Aaron exhaled through his nose, a sound he's made since he was a boy who lost at Monopoly and accused the dog. Mom, he said, softer and maybe for the first time speaking to me instead of at me, you're overreacting. We were worried. You fell last spring. I slid on a rug and bruised my thigh, I said. I told you not to buy rugs without grips. I got up by myself and made coffee. That is not a reason to take my life. He rubbed his temple. You don't understand the legal. I understand the legal, I said. I raised you. I paid for the 2 years you took to find yourself after college. I bought you a used car so you could drive to interviews you thought were beneath you. I watched your daughter when your wife was too tired to try. I have been kind in a way that makes some people think I am weak. That is not a legal status. That is a choice I am not making today. Silence sat down with us like a new guest. I'm still your son, he said finally, the words small and human in a way that cracked something inside me he wasn't trying to crack. You are, I said, and my eyes stung. And I am still your mother. Which is why I'm giving you a gift I should have given you years ago, the consequence of your choices. His mouth opened, closed. The dog barked from the hallway. Jasper's timing has always been better than mine. Mr. Bennett cleared his throat gently. Here's what happens next, he said. Miss Hale will be going home. She will keep her accounts. You will not attempt to move her anywhere without her consent. If you attempt to use any old powers of attorney, we will file today's revocation with every relevant institution by morning. If you attempt to access her safe deposit box, you will be introduced to the concept of security footage and the word felony. If you contact her doctors claiming she is unwell, the letter on the table will meet you in the doorway with a cup of coffee and a uniformed friend. He slid a business card across the table. On it, a phone number was handwritten in neat block letters. My colleague, Ms. Davies, he said. If you'd like to discuss elder law in a way that doesn't involve guesswork, she'll be delighted. Bring a checkbook. Tessa stared at the card as if it boiled. This is ridiculous. It's called the law, Mr. Bennett said. It's dry on purpose. I don't want Grandma to leave, Lena blurted, voice wavering for the first time. I like when she stays. I like her pancakes and how she doesn't sigh when I talk too long. Aaron closed his eyes briefly and opened them to that unbearable kid he used to be, the one skinned and snotty, asking if his mother was mad at him or just the day. I'm not leaving because of you, I said to Lena. I'm leaving because people here think a good lie is as safe as a true plan. I stood. My knees didn't crack. My back stood up with me like a friend. The house was quiet in a way that felt less like peace and more like the moment a storm changes direction. Wait, Aaron said, hand half raised like a man hailing a taxi he doesn't really want to catch. Mom, where did you go today? The question was childish. The subtext wasn't. What did you do to my world while I wasn't looking? Home, I said. And the money? Tessa asked, all gloss gone. Only metal now. You can't legally. The bank will explain what I can do, I said. If you call, Ask for the Elder Client Protection Unit. They'll spell your name right in their notes. It landed. She blanched. Aaron's gaze flicked to the kitchen camera, then to the tape. He moved toward it instinctively, as if unseeing could unmake. Don't, Mr. Bennett said softly. Not everything is improved by erasing. Aaron stopped. His shoulders slumped. He looked at Lena again. You recorded us. She held his gaze. I told the truth early. He nodded once. It was small. It was enormous. We left them there, two people who had mistaken management for love, who had built a story in which my frailty made their days simpler. Lena took her backpack. I took my dignity. Mr. Bennett took the leftover honey bars, because even in storms someone remembers snacks. On the porch, the air tasted like rain and salt and something else, clean metal, the smell of a doubled spine. We walked to the car. My hands shook once on the steering wheel and then learned how to be still again. You okay? Lena asked softly. I'm angry, I said. I'm also proud. And I am hungry for pancakes I did not have to share with lawyers. She laughed, a sound like a bell. We have mix. When we pulled into Cedar Harbor, we saw it before we parked. A cream envelope tucked into my doorframe, hand-delivered by a person who likes righteousness. A note from APS confirming a case had been opened. A second envelope from the county clerk's office stamped received with today's date. Paper lightning, traveling slow. The kind Roy would have respected. We ate pancakes at 5:30. Lena flipped the last one like a magician and bowed when it landed perfect. I told her a story from 1978 about Roy and a broken belt sander and a promise we kept anyway. She told me a story about the cafeteria and a girl who sits alone and how maybe she would sit there next week. We put our new papers in my new safe, a bigger one, suddenly, and made a list of funny movies that don't pretend old women are jokes. At 6:20, Lena's phone chimed. She read, then blinked. What? She handed me the screen. A text from Aaron. It had fewer words than any message he's ever sent me. Mom. I'm sorry. Can we talk tomorrow? I'll come to you. I stared at the letters until they stopped floating. Mr. Bennett had warned me this might happen, the quick swerve toward apology when a person feels the heat of consequence. He also warned me to watch the follow-through, not the flourish. Can I come? Lena asked. Of course, I said. Bring your lighthouse. We were washing dishes when we heard the car. Not Aaron's. Another engine. It idled too long, a visitor trying to decide if they were the kind that knocked or the kind that let themselves in. A shadow passed the window. Then a knock. Mr. Bennett, who had insisted on sweeping my porch while I cooked because he is that kind of man, straightened on the step as I opened the door. A woman stood there in a gray suit that looked like it was pressed by a rulebook. Her hair was polite. Her eyes were alert. Behind her stood a second person in plain clothes with an ID clipped to a belt. Ms. Evelyn Hale, the woman asked. Yes. I'm Officer Castillo, she said gently. This is Ms. Patel from Adult Protective Services. We received a report today and wanted to check on you. I felt the oddest urge to laugh, a small, delighted sound. Paper lightning had found thunder. Come in, I said. We've been expecting the good kind of knock. They came in. We sat at the table. I gave them pancakes because justice is sweeter with butter. Lena handed over our timeline like a homework project made of truth. Where's your son now? Ms. Patel asked softly, pen patient on her pad. Home, I said, learning how to say a new kind of sorry. And tomorrow? Officer Castillo asked. Tomorrow he'll come here, I said. We'll talk. What will he find when he comes back? Lena asked, eyes bright, a little wild with the courage of children who have seen beneath a mask and still want the world. I looked at my granddaughter, at the papers on my table, at the lighthouse she'd drawn, beams sweeping steady across lines and margins, at the officers with notebooks and kind eyes, at the retired attorney who wore yard boots with his tie and had spent the day dragging lightning to places it needed to land. He'll find me, I said simply. And every door he planned to close already open and double-locked. Ms. Patel smiled into her notes. Officer Castillo set down his pen. And somewhere across town, In a house that smelled of citrus cleaner and garlic, my son and his wife stared at a kitchen table where paper had replaced certainty and panic had learned the sound of its own name. By morning, the ocean had ironed itself flat and the gulls were late to their own meeting. Lena and I ate toast at the small kitchen table while Mr. Bennet turned my living room into a headquarters, paper neatly clipped, names and times labeled on sticky notes like flags. He christened today's plan with a grin that reached only one eye, Operation Lantern Room. At 9 sharp, the doorbell rang. Lena looked at the clock, then at me, as if keeping time with courage. Aaron stood on the porch in yesterday's apology and a jacket he'd never worn to see me before. The hem had that crisp line rich men trust more than their own intuition. He held a bakery box like a peace offering. Behind him, Tessa hovered in an expression she probably used for negotiations, the kind where smiling means you're ready to be generous with someone else's outcome. I opened the door and stepped aside. "Come in." Aaron's gaze flitted over the paperwork on the console table and landed on Mr. Bennet, whose tie was straighter than his yard boots. "I didn't know a lawyer would be here." "A witness," Mr. Bennet said mildly. "And a translator when emotions try to speak the law." Tessa swung her toad onto her shoulder and set the bakery box down. The word forgiven was scripted on the cake in airy frosting. My granddaughter stared at it like it was a joke in a language she didn't plan to learn. "We were scared," Aaron began, hands open, palms up. "Mom, I believe that you were scared," I said. "I don't believe that you were honest with me about your fear." He flinched. Tessa reached for the box again, realized the frosting message was more tone than offering, and pulled her hand back as if the sugar burned. We've been stretched," Aaron said. "The house, the business, Lena's tuition next year." "School is public," Lena interjected. "Unless you forgot to tell me something." Tessa's mouth tightened. "There's a magnet program," she said. "It's selective. We pay." Aaron held up a hand to her and then to me. "Mom, I messed up. I said things I shouldn't have. We should have talked to you. We should have been clear." "And honest," Lena supplied like a beat from a drumline. "And honest," Aaron echoed. I glanced at Mr. Bennet. He gave a small nod like a conductor ready for the second movement. "There's a hearing on Thursday," I said. "Emergency guardianship. Filed last Friday, stamped Monday morning at 9:07. Your signatures are on it." Tessa's eyes closed just long enough to gather a brief storm. When she opened them, her voice was smooth as a path across ice. "We filed that because your doctor told us you fell." "She told you I bruised my thigh," I said, "last spring." The petition claims recent cognitive decline, unpaid bills, and hoarding behaviors. Tessa's lashes fluttered in a way that would sell mascara and drown a lie. "We must have misunderstood. Officer Castillo and Ms. Patel understood," I said softly. "So did Dr. Shea." I slid a paper forward. Dr. Shea's letter, dated yesterday, printed on a calm blue letterhead. Aaron scanned it, but didn't lift his head. He read words the way people tiptoe through rooms where they are not invited. "We will withdraw the petition," Tessa said, decisive. "Today." "You can't," Mr. Bennet said, not unkindly. "Emergency petitions can be dismissed by the court, but you can't unring what you filed. The judge has to hear why the house caught fire in your mind." He folded his hands. "And she will." Tessa's nostrils flared. "We're not monsters." "No," I said. "Just people who tried to solve their fear by taking something that wasn't theirs." Aaron's throat worked. "Mom, there's more. And I want you to hear it from me." Tessa shot him a glance like a flare. He ignored it, a small miracle that made me ache. "I went to the bank yesterday," he said quietly. To move some money from your savings to a management account. I thought consolidating would make things easier. They told me there was a flag on your accounts and that any transfers required your express permission." "They did more than a flag," I said. "They reversed the pending transfer labeled tax hold. And they added an alert to your profile." He nodded, jaw hard. "They asked me to leave. The manager said I'd get a call." He lifted his eyes to mine. "I got it. This morning. A woman from their elder protection unit. She told me about penalties. She used the word prosecutable." "Big word," Lena murmured, not smiling. "I'm not." "I didn't mean," He blinked like the room was suddenly full of smoke. I panicked. Because you hate the feeling of not being in control, I said. I recognize it. It's my worst habit, too. I control what I can so I don't have to sit with the fear of what I can't. I was trying to keep everyone safe, he said, small. I was trying to be a good son and a good father and a good provider. And you tried to do it by using me without me, I said. That's not good. That's frightened and selfish in a suit. Tessa drew a breath like a blade being sharpened. We're here to make amends. We're here to fix it. Then let's start with the truth, Mr. Bennett said. He tapped a folder. We have the recording, the petition, the bank's reversal, the letters. What we don't have is the whereabouts of the original documents you removed from Miss Hale's safe, the deed, the safe deposit key, and the old power of attorney. Return them. Today. Tessa's chin lifted. I don't have them. Lena opened a small notebook and clicked her pen, the tiniest, most devastating sound. Then I'm confused, she said, innocent as a bell. Because I took a photo of your tote yesterday when I was looking for my charger. You posted that bag on social last year and bragged it has a pocket for everything. In that photo, the yellow envelope is sticking up. Tessa froze. Her hand went to her tote like it was a puppy that had just peed in public. Aaron's eyes closed again, longer this time. Bring them back, I said, holding my son's gaze. Not because the papers hold power anymore, yesterday's documents beat them to the finish line, but because I won't have reminders of my life lying under a scarf at the bottom of someone else's bag. Aaron's shoulders slumped. We'll get them. He gave Tessa a look that was less flair and more compass. Tessa looked away and then, in a move so quick I nearly missed it, her face softened. For a second, she looked like a girl who never learned to ask for help without paying interest. I thought, she began, eyes on the cake box, that if I could fix the money, everything else would quiet down. Aaron's business is not what he says it is. The Harbor Club isn't just dinner. It's hoping the right table pays the mortgage. She exhaled. I was afraid of losing the house. I was afraid of being the wife who couldn't keep her family together. You don't keep a family together by gluing someone else to a chair, I said. You ask them where they want to sit. She swallowed. I'm sorry. Good, Mr. Bennett said. Now let's talk about consequences. Tessa's head jerked up. You can't punish us. I won't, I said. But I will make changes. Not to harm you. To protect me. Protection sometimes feels like punishment to people who benefited from the lack of it. Lena glanced at me. We had talked late, slicing pancakes and fear into manageable bites. We would not do drama. We would do structures. I'm restructuring my estate, I said. The trust places my house beyond casual reach. Lena will have an education fund. Rose and Mr. Bennett are my agents. Aaron, you will have a smaller share than we imagined when you were 9 and honest. It isn't because I love you less. It's because trust is not a faucet I forget to turn off. Aaron stared at the floorboard Roy had replaced in 1994 after I dropped a fern and the pot split like an egg. He nodded once. Okay. And there are conditions, I added. If you complete a financial counseling course and meet with Ms. Patel's team to learn about elder law, and if you and Tessa attend 3 sessions with a mediator to write a family agreement about boundaries and decision-making, I will consider revisiting the distribution. Tessa opened her mouth and then closed it, a person standing in front of a train and realizing they are also the conductor. And the guardianship petition? Aaron asked, voice thin. What happens there? We show up, I said. We tell the truth. We let the judge dismiss it. We ask for a written order stating I'm competent. Courts are paper, but they write in stone. Silence stretched. The Gulls finally made their late entrance, calling each other names I won't repeat. Aaron rubbed the back of his neck in a gesture so familiar it trifled with my heart. I'll get the envelope, he said. Now. Tessa moved as if to follow. I held up a hand. Leave the tote. She set it down like a person learning to let go of a thing they thought was their life vest. When the door closed behind them, the house felt 10 years bigger. Lena leaned against me. How did you not yell? I wanted to, I admitted. But yelling satisfies the moment and starves the plan. Operation Lantern Room is allergic to yelling, Mr. Bennett said, deadpan. It breaks the glass. We found the envelope under a sweater in the tote, of course. You can't hide a steer under your coat forever. Inside, the old power of attorney and the deed titles stared up at us like a lesson. We put them in my new safe and took a photograph of the tote with the empty spot, then a photo of the papers inside a folder marked returned by Aaron Hale, September 6th. Paper lightning does not strike the same place twice by accident. It's guided to where it should land. Aaron returned an hour later with a banker's blue pouch and eyes that had learned humility's gate code. He passed the safe deposit key to me without preface. It was in the glove compartment, he said. I told myself I put it there so it wouldn't get lost. You told yourself a lot of things, I said. Tell yourself new things. He managed a small smile like a boy trying on his father's hat and finding it too large. I can't stay, he added. I have to go home and face Tessa with less frosting. Good, I said. Bring her cake plate back clean. He did something that I hadn't seen him do since he was 16. He hugged me with both arms and his face didn't retreat to the next thing while his body finished the hug. It wasn't a solved thing. It was a true one. After he left, Ms. Patel called. The judge had advanced the emergency hearing to tomorrow at 10 a.m. because the petition lacks clarity. Translation: even paper wants clean hands. We spent the afternoon turning my living room into a courtroom that smelled like lemon oil and coffee. Mr. Bennett coached me through questions I might hear, the kind designed to redirect a storm onto the person who brought an umbrella. What do you say if the lawyer asks, "Aren't you worried about being alone?" I say, everyone is alone sometimes. I make food for that situation. What do you say if they ask why you didn't tell your son about the trust? I say, because trust isn't a committee vote. It's a boundary. I installed one. What do you say if they imply Lena coerced you? I say, she told the truth early. That's not coercion. That's good parenting I didn't have to do. Lena recorded my answers and played them back so I could hear who I am when I don't apologize for existing. It was a better voice than the one I used when Lena was small, and I thought keeping the peace meant keeping my mouth cheap. At 5, a knock came like a teacher's rap on a desk. I opened to find a tidy woman in a navy blazer holding a clipboard and a camera bag. Hi, she chirped. I'm Annalie with Salt Light Realty. I'm here to do preliminary photos for the Cedar Harbor listing. We don't have a listing, I said. She checked her tablet. Hale Residence, Cedar Street, owner's son authorized a pre-market walkthrough. She peered past me. I only need 10 minutes. Mr. Bennett stepped into the doorway, his tie considering a citizen's arrest. No, you don't. Annalie blinked. Did I? Who gave you access? He asked. A woman named Tessa? She said they're consolidating assets and the owner is moving too, oh boy. She lifted her eyes, and to her credit, she looked embarrassed. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. It's all right, I said, because she was not the storm, only the person who read its forecast. Thanks for your time. Please update your notes. The owner is not moving. And put an alert on that name. If anyone contacts you about my house without me standing beside them, say no. She nodded eagerly. Absolutely. I don't want to be that realtor. She hesitated, then added, my grandma raised me. If anybody tried that with her, I'd climb a tree and throw coconuts. Wrong climate, Lena said, deadpan. Annalie grinned. I'd import them. After she left, I stood in the quiet and listened to the old house breathe. Roy used to say buildings talk if you let them. Today, mine said you did right. That night, I dreamt a clean dream, a lighthouse lit without drama, a ship turning before the rocks, the beam sweeping a line across a calm, watchful sea. We arrived at the courthouse early, the kind of early that wears sneakers and a cardigan. The courtroom was smaller than television, but exactly as serious. The judge was a woman with hair like mine when I forget to put pins in it, and a face that did not belong to anyone but her. Aaron and Tessa sat at the petitioner's table with a lawyer in a suit 2 sizes too confident. Miss Patel sat behind us. Mr. Bennett's colleague, Ms. Davies, slipped in with a folder like a scalpel. Case. In re. Evelyn Hale, the clerk called. Emergency petition for guardianship. The judge glanced at the petition, then up. Mr. Hale, Mrs. Hale, she said, voice level, I've read your filings. I also have letters in the file from Dr. Shea, Adult Protective Services, and the bank. Why am I here? The lawyer stood, very sure of his own mouth. Your Honor, we are here because Mrs. Hale has demonstrated cognitive decline and poor financial judgment, including allowing her savings to sit unused and keeping dangerous items in her home. What dangerous items? The judge asked, alert in that way judges are, bored until they are not. The lawyer blinked. A safe. And rugs. Rugs, the judge repeated, the corner of her mouth doing a tiny calisthenic. Proceed. He adjusted his papers. Mrs. Hale fell last spring. She forgets things. Her granddaughter may be unduly influencing her. I stood. Nervousness is a muscle. You strengthen it by using it well. Your Honor, I said calmly, I'd like to speak. Please, she said. I prefer to hear from the person whose life is being arranged by strangers. I told her the story in the shortest possible way that still told the truth. The recording. The surprise placement plan. The bank's reversal and elder protection unit. APS's visit. The revocation. The new powers of attorney. The preliminary trust. The realtor's knock. The cake with forgiven in frosting, which I mentioned not to be petty, but because sometimes a single image explains a whole room. The judge listened like a person who eats details for breakfast. She asked questions that revealed she'd seen this before, the children who love the idea of safety more than the person who needs it, the spouses who think urgency cleans a mess. When she finished, she turned to Aaron. Is that accurate? He stood, hands clasped. Mostly, he said, voice rough. We were afraid of money. We were afraid of the future. We made a plan that sounded organized and kind in a kitchen at midnight. It wasn't either. I'm sorry. And you? The judge asked Tessa. Tessa stood, spine straight. I thought management was love. I was wrong. The judge leaned back. Mrs. Hale, how do you want to proceed? I'd like the petition dismissed, I said. With an order stating I'm competent to make my own decisions, and with a recommendation to the bank and to APS that my accounts remain flagged through the end of the year. I'd also like a note in the file that any future petitions must be accompanied by a current medical exam and cannot be filed without notifying me. The judge smiled at something only she could see. You should teach a class, she said. Petition dismissed. Order to follow. Her gavel was a quiet punctuation, not a slap. As we gathered our things, the judge added, voice neutral and somehow kind, Mr. and Mrs. Hale, a last word. Love for a parent isn't a transfer of deed. It's a mirror. Be sure you can live with what looks back. Aaron nodded without lifting his head. Tessa pressed her lips together like a person trying to keep a promise from leaking. Out in the hallway, Ms. Patel squeezed my forearm. Not everyone gets this result, she said. You did the work early. I had a lighthouse, I said, nodding at Lena. Lena grinned without teeth, the way teenagers smile when their hearts are too big for their faces. We went for pancakes because victory tastes better with syrup. Mr. Bennett, who wore his tie at a happier angle now, raised a coffee mug. To Operation Lantern Room, he said. To paper lightning and the people who aim it. To telling the truth early, Lena added. To pancakes after hearings, I said. We ate like people who had earned their hunger. Between bites, my phone buzzed. A voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. I listened, and the voice that came out was a ghost I hoped I wouldn't meet. MS. Hale, a woman said, too smooth. This is Nora from Seaside Manors. I'm calling to confirm your intake appointment this morning at 11. We have your deposit on file and your room is ready. If you have any questions about your move-in today, please call. I breathed out so hard my ribcage squeaked. They paid a deposit, I said flatly. Without me. Mr. Bennett's eyebrows climbed like hikers. With what funds? Hold music, I muttered, already dialing the number for Seaside Manors. The admissions director answered with the cheer of a person accustomed to making hard sells sound like spa days. Under what name was the deposit made? I asked. Evelyn Hale, she chirped. Credit card ending in, oh. Actually, it says it was a cashier's check delivered Monday. From an account labeled Hale Family Support. I looked at Aaron. He shook his head. Tessa's eyes rounded. That's not ours. Who set the appointment? I asked. She paused, paper shuffling. It says authorized by daughter-in-law, and the note says client resistant, Recommend surprise placement. Lena made a noise like a cat deciding whether to hiss or become a lawyer. We won't be coming, I said, careful to wrap every syllable in clarity. Cancel the intake. Please email me a copy of any documents signed in my name. We didn't have your signature, she said, voice going dry like paper in a small fire. If you'd like to discuss refunds, I'd like you to hold any documents and expect a call, I said, thinking of bank flags and cameras and the word prosecutable. I hung up and stared at the crumbs on my plate. Aaron ran his hands over his face. I didn't do that, he said. I swear. Tessa swallowed. My sister works at a placement service, she said slowly. We talked on Sunday. She might have moved on it. She thinks she's helpful. Mr. Bennett exhaled through his nose. Call her, he said. Now. Tessa stepped away, phone to ear, voice low. She returned 5 minutes later looking like someone had quietly sawed off the leg of her favorite chair. She said she didn't need my permission, Tessa said. She called it a professional courtesy. She said she used an account she keeps for bridging deposits and that she'd be reimbursed by the family when emotions cool. She said she didn't need your signature for an intake hold as long as she had family authorization. Which she didn't, Lena said. She had a suggestion, Tessa added, voice wobbling. She said we should wait until the dust settles and then bring Grandma by for a tour and make it sticky. I asked what sticky meant. She said, the paperwork. We sat with that. The kind of quiet that isn't silence, but stunned decency trying to find an exit. Call her back, Mr. Bennett said. Put her on speaker. Tessa obeyed. On the third ring, the sister answered, bright. Hey, did you talk to your mother-in-law? Is she excited? She's not moving, Tessa said. Cancel everything. A pause. Tess, don't go soft. You asked for my help. I asked for advice, Tessa said, voice sharpening. Not to commit my mother-in-law to a place she doesn't want, with money we didn't authorize. You don't need authorization if it's the right thing, the sister said, a sentence that only sounds wise if you've never been told no by a person with a spine. Listen, emotions are high. Wait it out. You've involved yourself in a legal situation, Mr. Bennett said evenly, leaning toward the speaker. Please send a full accounting of the deposit, a copy of any contracts you signed or delivered, and a statement that you recognize you are not authorized to act on behalf of Miss Hale in any context. Send it in writing by end of day. Failure to do so will prompt a different kind of conversation with people who carry badges. Silence. Then, who is this? A neighbor, Mr. Bennett said. With a long memory and a friend at the district attorney's office. The line went dead. A minute later, a text chimed on Tessa's phone, on it. By the way, you're overreacting. Lena rolled her eyes. I've never seen someone text their own indictment before. We left it to the paper. Ms. Davies drafted a neat letter. APS logged an addendum. The bank added another note. Seaside Manors emailed a PDF packet so thick it would have bruised a foot. Aaron asked for a copy. He read silently, jaw tight. I don't recognize this person I've been, he said. I want to. I don't. Then be someone else, I said. Start by taking the word placement out of your vocabulary. We spent the evening doing small, domestic things that feel like throwing ropes to yourself. Lena made a study schedule for the week. I labeled spice jars because cumin and cinnamon are only fun to mix up once. Mr. Bennett fixed the hinge on my laundry closet because he is the kind of man who thinks every later should get a chance at now. At 8, a text from Tessa's sister arrived, confirmed canceled. Refund pending. Do not contact me again unless through counsel. Good, Mr. Bennett said. We've made enough new friends this week. The next morning, Aaron came by alone. He looked like a person who spent a night dividing his life into before and after and realizing the chalk line is not where you thought. Mom, he began, nervous, hands fidgeting with the seam of his pocket. I need to tell you something I should have told you months ago. I took out a line of credit against my business and used our house as collateral. Then I moved money between accounts to make it look like the payments were automatic. When they weren't. He breathed in like he had to pull the air through a straw. I told myself I could fix it with a big contract. It hasn't arrived. I was drowning. I reached for you. I let the words sit where they landed. The room didn't change. The house didn't despise him. The goals still said rude things to each other without checking who shares a wall. You were wrong, I said. But you're not the only person who has made a bad decision and dressed it like it was a good one. He nodded so quickly I wondered if the world would slide off his head. I'm going to sell the boat, he said. Cancel the club. Get a second job if I have to. Whatever. I'm not asking you for help. I'm telling you what I'll do. That last sentence was the best one you've said all week, I said. I'm proud of that one. He swallowed. He sat at my table. He looked tired in the way men get tired when the story they've been using to stand up lays down. I was cruel, he whispered. To you. To Lena. Not cruel, I said. Cowardly with paperwork. I reached across the table and covered his hand. You can change. A minute passed. A small, important one. Then his eyes lifted. Can I come to church with you on Sunday? He asked suddenly, a boy again, hopeful and certain the pews understand men on the run. Yes, I said, smiling. You can sit where you want. By afternoon, a letter arrived from the court, petition dismissed. Order entered, Ms. Hale competent, with full agency in her affairs. Copy sent to petitioner, bank, APS. We framed it. Not because it was pretty. Because it was decent. At 4, there was one last thing to do. The part Lena had labeled on her plan with a star and the words, not revenge, consequences. We drove to Erin and Tessa's with cookies, the cheap delicious kind that says we are not here to gloat. The kitchen table looked smaller than yesterday, as if the house had been breathing in false ease and finally exhaled. You're not here to rub it in? Tessa asked, half a laugh, half a flinch. I'm here to return your cake plate and to invite you to dinner at my house on Saturday, I said. Community dinner. People who love Lena. People who love you even when you make a mess. We'll write a family agreement with the mediator. We'll eat slow food and say hard things kindly. Tessa stared at me like I'd offered to move the ocean. Why are you being nice? I'm not nice, I said. I'm consistent. She laughed, surprised, and it was the first sound from her all week that didn't clang. Lena drifted down the hall and returned with a small box. For you, Mom, she said to Tessa, shy. I took it from my room so you wouldn't find it and think I was hiding anything. It's the voice recorder. I don't think I need it anymore. Tessa held it like it might bite. Thank you. I want you to know, Lena said quietly, that I recorded because I was scared, not because I enjoy gotchas. I don't. They make me feel like I stole something. Tessa's face did something complicated then. She looked at her daughter and saw a person she had not made and could not manage, only love. She wiped at her face once. Okay, she said. Saturday. We left them with cookies and a schedule and a new kind of hope. On Saturday, the house filled with the right noise. Laughter, a dog underfoot, chairs scraping, plates scraping back, thanks in their porcelain language. Rose brought empanadas. Mr. Bennett brought honey bars with more honey than yesterday, as if justice had its own recipe. Ms. Patel didn't come because it wasn't her job to be a friend, but she sent a little card that said you did it yourselves. We sat at the table and wrote a family agreement. No more surprise plans, all financial discussions in the light, decisions about Evelyn deferred to Evelyn, guardianship only considered if a current medical exam and 2 third-party evaluations say so. Apologies offered in words and acts, not baked goods alone. We signed. We ate. We laughed at a joke I can't remember because it was only funny then. Before everyone left, I took Lena to the porch. The evening threw its best colors across the water. Somewhere, far away, a bell buoy clanged softly, a metronome for people who think too much. What they found when they came back home made them panic, Lena said, remembering the first day's line, tasting our own history like a dare. They found themselves, I said. It's terrifying. And they found paper, she said. And a grandmother, I added. And a lighthouse, she said, tapping her chest where the drawing was. Version 3 now, lines darker, beam wider. Especially that, I said. We sat and watched the light work. The ocean decided to behave like a picture. The goals were laid again, and we let them be. Not everything needs a schedule. Some things just need a boundary and a beam. But stories like this don't end with a gavel. They end when the last person who needed to learn something actually learns it. And there was still one person left who thought she could outmaneuver consequences because she'd never met the right set of them. She sent a message the following Tuesday that made the hair on my arms stand up and arrange itself in alphabetical order. Tess's sister's text arrived at 7:12 a.m., dressed like customer service and shaped like a threat. Morning. Just a heads up, since yesterday's drama delayed things, I shifted Evelyn's intake to next week and filed a helpful change of address so mail doesn't get lost in the shuffle. You're welcome. Once emotions cool, we can finish the sticky stuff. Don't spook her. Lena read it twice, then handed me the phone with 2 fingers like it was something that might stain. What does she mean by change of address? Exactly what it sounds like, Mr. Bennett said, already reaching for his notepad. They're trying to divert your mail. That's a federal line no one gets to step over. He was on the porch, phone in hand, before his coffee cooled. In a world that sometimes rewards boldness over consent, we were going to make the opposite true. I called the bank to add yet another note. Lena called Ms. Patel with the speed of a teenager who has decided bureaucracy is just a boss fight with different outfits. By 9, the post office confirmed a request had been submitted on your behalf for a move to a downtown mailbox I hadn't rented. They canceled it and flagged my address. The clerk's voice went steel sweet. People think our forms are just paper. They forget who reads them. At 10, the bank called back. A second, authorized user attempt had pinged their system overnight from a new device in a different city. The name was familiar enough to make the day hum in a lower key, Tess's sister. I stood at the sink and watched 3 ghouls bicker over nothing. She isn't done, I said. But neither are we. Operation Beacon Net launched at noon. Names matter, Mr. Bennett said, eyes warm behind his glasses. A lantern room guides ships. A net catches the ones still trying to ram the rocks. He tapped the plan Lena had drawn, a web of boxes and arrows neat as lace. At the center, stop the leak, then show the bucket. He made calls. Ms. Patel looped in a detective from the Financial Crimes Unit who was rumored to like paperwork the way other men like golf. The district attorney's elder abuse liaison agreed to review whatever we captured. Rose, whose kindness is a tool, not a costume, volunteered to make an appointment, as herself, with Tess's sister's placement service to ask what sticky meant and whether the service had a license, contracts, or a conscience. We didn't discuss revenge. We discussed gravity. You remove it, and everything floats into harm. The meeting was set for 3 at a coffee shop with a back room locals use for book clubs and birthdays. We arrived early. The detective set a small camera the size of a sugar packet on a ficus, like a magician doing a polite trick. Ms. Patel sat with a latte and whispers. Mr. Bennett wore his tie bright and his expression bored, the better to unnerve the uncareful. Tess's sister showed up exactly on time, woman of action, blazer the color of good intentions. She carried a leather portfolio whose bulging zipper had never heard the word no. Rose. She beamed. I'm Nora. Or, as I like to say, the person who keeps adult children from burning out. Aren't we heroes? Rose smiled, the serene smile of a nurse who knows what pain looks like when it wears perfume. I'm looking ahead, she said. My friend Evelyn is still independent, but she wants to understand options. I help at my church. People ask me how to avoid surprises. Surprises are my specialty, Nora chirped. We do everything quietly. Families appreciate discretion. We have a network, private suites, expedited placement, paperwork off your plate. You'd be shocked what I can do with just a family authorization. What does family authorization mean? Rose asked, pleasant as sunlight. Is there a form? Nora opened the portfolio and slid out a stack of documents. Intake placeholder, family consent, caregiver burden assessment, release for records. The forms were aggressive with typography and soft on legality. My name was on one of them already, typed into a field that should have been blank. I did a little preliminary work, Nora said, as if rearranging someone's life was a courtesy. To get ahead. That's what families need, a head start. I put in a change of address because the first 2 weeks are chaotic. We don't want bills lost while we tidy. Rose glanced at the camera cactus, then back at Nora. No signatures yet, she murmured. We don't always need them at the hold stage, Nora said breezily. Deposit secures the room. Families can't decide their minds if grandma is already comfortable. My breath did a thing it hasn't done since Roy died. It grew teeth. Mr. Bennet's jaw went granite. The detective folded a napkin with the concentration of a man who refuses to spill his coffee on an arrest warrant. Rose kept her voice friendly. And if the elder says no? Once she's in, the staff knows how to make it sticky, Nora said, cheerful. One of our partner homes has a soothing suite for the first 72 hours, limited phone access to avoid confusion. We've found the fear fades once the decision is over. I didn't realize my hands had clenched until Lena's fingers peeled mine open under the table and threaded them with her own. Mr. Bennet lifted one eyebrow a millimeter, the legal equivalent of pulling a fire alarm. Rose glanced at the forms again. Do you have a license? Nora's smile didn't move. We're a placement concierge. We connect families with solutions. We don't need a license to introduce people. Do you take referral fees from facilities? Rose asked lightly. Nora laughed, tinkling and hollow at once. We call them thank yous. The door opened. The detective came in like a man who'd left his hat behind and remembered his authority instead. He showed his badge with the politeness people reserve for very sharp knives. Miss Klein, he said. I'm Detective Garner with the Financial Crimes Unit. We received reports of an attempted change of address and unauthorized deposit regarding a Ms. Evelyn Hale. We've also received a copy of a family consent form with her name typed in without her knowledge. Nora's smile stayed. Her pupils shrank. Detective, she said. This is a misunderstanding. Great, he said. Let's misunderstand together. He nodded at the portfolio. May I? She held onto it as if letting go meant losing gravity. Then, sensing the currents had shifted, she surrendered. He flipped through. His face didn't change, but the air did. He glanced at Rose. Thanks for your time, he said. We'll take it from here. He led Nora to the back of the room, Ms. Patel a quiet shadow. Their voices stayed low. A barista, suddenly invested in the art of wiping, found a countertop that needed polishing for exactly as long as the interview lasted. When it ended, Nora left without looking at our table. She walked fast, the kind of fast that says a person is used to outrunning accountability. It didn't matter how fast she walked now. Paper was faster. What happens next? Lena whispered. Letters, Mr. Bennet said. Licensing boards. The DA. Maybe charges. Definitely sunlight. Sometimes that's enough. It was. It wasn't. It depended on what you call enough. Within 48 hours, 3 facilities severed ties with Nora's concierge. A 4th pretended they'd never met her and then quietly updated their intake policy wording to remove a family hold clause that should never have been there. The bank added her name to an internal list. The post office made a note that still makes me smile when I think about it. Attempted misdirection. Caller will not be serviced. MS. Patel filed a formal report with the state's Protective Services Unit, which forwarded it to the AG's office with the kind of cover letter that reads like a scolding prepared to become law. And in our house by the water, we kept living like people who had found the floor again. At mediation, we did the hardest part. We told the truth when no one was taking notes. Tessa asked Lena what scared her most. Lena said, when you call Grandma the old girl. It makes me feel like you love your convenience more than her. Tessa swallowed the kind of pride that chokes and said, I won't say it again. Aaron made a list labeled how to tell the truth, then shut up, which is the best list he's ever made. He sold the boat. He canceled the club. He took on a consulting contract that bruised his ego and improved his sleep. On Sunday, he came to church with me and sang in a voice that would not win any prizes and was, therefore, perfect. On Tuesday, he took a class at the community center on elder law basics. On Thursday, he called the bank's elder protection unit to thank them for saving him from himself. He did not call it a favor. He called it a boundary someone else held until he could. Once the judge's order arrived, we made a small ceremony of it. We read it out loud in the kitchen, the way you read poetry that is not pretty but is correct. Lena taped a copy inside the door of my new safe. Beneath it, we slid our family agreement. No surprises, no shadow paperwork. When in doubt, say it out loud and let the light do its job. A week later, a package arrived with no return address. Inside, a cashier's check from Seaside Manors for the full deposit, and a note on crisp paper that abstained from apology and managed contrition anyway. Refund enclosed. We are reviewing our intake policies. Perspective appreciated. Sometimes please is not a word, it's a system. At the next community potluck, Ms. Patel asked if Lena and I would speak for 20 minutes about what happened. We don't need names, she said. We need a map. We made one. We called it the Lightkeeper's List. It wasn't a manifesto, just a page with 10 lines. Tell the truth early. If a plan needs a surprise, it isn't a plan, it's control. Put your documents where you can reach them and where people you trust know to look. Stop saying burden about people. Call the work what it is, care. Put a watch on your accounts and make sure the person who watches you knows what they're looking for. Write it down. Paper is slow lightning. If fear is telling you to act fast, sit down first. Don't confuse nice with safe. Eat when the plan lets you. Hunger tells lies. Lighthouses don't move to find ships. They stand where they are and shine. We printed 100 copies and put a lighthouse at the top. People took them like recipes. A woman with soft hands said, "I'll put it in my mother's Bible." A man with a careful beard said, "I didn't know I could ask the bank to call me when my dad's card gets used at a liquor store." A young caseworker wiped her eyes and said, "You have no idea how much easier you just made my Friday." After the crowd thinned, an older man in a veteran's cap approached. He looked at his shoes, then at me. "They tried it with me," he said. "Last year. I didn't have words for it, so I thought I was the fool. I wasn't. Thank you for teaching me a better name." We weren't heroes. We were what I'd told Lena we would be from the first minute she whispered her plan into my hallway. People who hold a railing and keep the light on. Nora sent one more email before she disappeared beneath official language, a short, defensive paragraph insisting she'd only ever tried to help overwhelmed families place their loved ones quickly and kindly. We did not reply. Ms. Davies forwarded it to the board investigating her concierge. Someone somewhere filed it under Exhibit Shows Unrepentance, which is a clerical phrase I find as satisfying as sanded wood. At home, life remembered itself. Jasper the dog decided the laundry basket is a throne. Lena started sitting with the girl in her cafeteria and discovered they both hate tomatoes unless they're roasted, which I consider evidence that the world is sometimes reasonable. Aaron came over on Thursdays and made dinner with me. It turns out he chops onions like a man who has learned options are not the same as answers. Tessa stopped calling me the old girl and started calling to ask how I clean grease from the bottom of a pan without scouring the metal. We found a rhythm that felt like honesty, calls that didn't ask to borrow anything, texts sent early enough to be kind. On the first crisp night of fall, we drove out to the real lighthouse, the one 5 miles down, white and stubborn against a sky trying to do too much. I brought a thermos. Lena brought the ring of keys she'd watched me assemble as if keys were a language. We climbed the stairs. My knees registered a formal complaint, which I overruled with pancakes and pride. At the top, the lantern pulsed, gears working, the lens doing its ancient math. The sea below threw itself into the rocks and reassembled, as it always does, into something that looks like patience. "Will you show me?" Lena asked. I put her hands on the wheel and set mine over hers. Together we turned. The beam swept. The night obliged. "How long does it go?" she asked. "As long as someone turns it," I said. And then, when the world changes, someone wires a motor, and the light keeps going without hands. But you still check the gears. You still climb the stairs. She watched the beam lift those ungrateful waves, set them down again. "They weren't monsters," she murmured, meaning her parents. "No," I said. "Just people who forgot the difference between worry and permission." She nodded. Below us, somewhere, a buoy clanged the note it always does when the tide thinks about promotion. What they found when they came back home made them panic, she recited, the first sentence that started our week, now a different animal inside our mouths. "They found a plan where they expected confusion," I said. "They found proof where they expected pleading. They found us." She leaned against me, warm and fast beating. "I like being found." "Me too," I said. Now show me your beam. She turned the wheel. The light did what it always does when someone who loves it learns how to use it. It went farther. By Thanksgiving, the judge's order lived in a frame. The trust papers slept behind it. The family agreement wore food stains like badges. Aaron had paid off the line of credit enough that his business stopped calling him names at 3 a.m. Tessa and I baked side by side without treating flour like a truce. On a shelf by the door sat a small, ordinary wooden box with a new notary stamp inside. Mr. Bennett refused to take it back. "Insurance," he said, and winked. I didn't argue. You don't give away your umbrellas in a town that sees weather. We were cleaning up dishes when Lena nudged me toward the porch. The sea was dark velvet. A single, late gull etch-a-sketched the air. Aaron stood beside me with 2 mugs of cocoa, steam writing small sermons into the night. "Mom," he said. I'm going to make a habit of being better," he said. "Not just a moment out of it." "That's how habits work," I said. "You do a thing that doesn't feel like you, and then you do it enough until it is." He laughed, small and honest. "You always make it sound simple." "It isn't," I said. "But it is clear." He handed me the mug. We stood and listened to the water do what it always does, arrive and withdraw without asking anyone's permission. That night, before bed, I opened my safe and slid in the last thing on my list, a page Lena had given me to add to the lightkeeper's list. She'd written it in her neat print, the kind that makes teachers smile. "If anyone says sticky, get your hands off the paper." I laughed. Then I slept the way you sleep after you have wired a motor to a lighthouse and written down the maintenance schedule. I won't pretend the ocean never acts up or that people stop trying to rename your choices care. They don't. But fear is easier to carry when it has a handle, and that's what plans are. That's what truth is. A handle you can grip when someone else reaches for your life, with the confident enthusiasm of a person who has never considered the weight of what they're holding. Months later, a neighbor knocked with a plastic bag of muffins and a problem that looked like mine did in its first hour. We sat, and she cried, and I poured coffee, and Lena told her where the bank hides its non-easy buttons, and we printed the lightkeeper's list so many times the printer suggested a nap. When she left, she said, "I thought I needed revenge." "You needed receipts," I said. "And a door that locks both ways." And because every story like this deserves one last good noise, I'll give you the best sound of the year. The little click my front door makes when I close it for the night. The one that says I am inside, the world is outside, and the beam is doing its work while I sleep. Tomorrow, someone will come up my steps and ask for help or offer it. I'll be at the table, elbows in good repair, coffee poured. I am 67 and stubborn and capable and loved, and I have decided to measure my age in beams, not years. The ledger is generous. People call what happened to us a cautionary tale. That's fine. Let them. Caution is not fear. It is focus. It is a lantern set high in a room built for wild weather. It is a granddaughter whispering, "I have a plan," and a grandmother saying, "So do I," and meaning both of them. Once, a week began with a whisper and the end of my options. It ended with a judge's order, a family agreement, a cake plate washed and returned, and a stack of paper that made the right people nervous. When they came back home, they found that, and they learned the sound of panic in their own throats. Good. Panic is a teacher. Ours taught them to knock. The rest of the lesson was simple. We opened the door. We set a chair. We poured coffee. We turned the light. And when the tide tested every post we'd set in the ground, the house did what houses do when their beams are sound.
My grandmother told me this story. Thanks for watching this video. Bye bye.